Hi guys, in today's video we'll use these two-dimensional views we created in tutorial number 1 for this subject to generate this 3D of the rim we're doing. So we'll get a brief intro to 3D modeling and finally we'll render it as a picture. This tutorial has been created by EasyCAD for you and just wants to remind you guys to like the video and share if you enjoy. Okay, here we have what we need to transform our 2D views into a 3-dimensional rim. We will use boundary command. So just type boundary, hit enter, and this is the dialog box you'll have. When you pull the menu, we see that our options are creating a polyline or a region. I'll use region. Hit OK, and now CAD prompts you to pick an internal point in the area you want to make a region. I'll click within our profile, and although it seems that nothing happened, it did. I'll repeat the command boundary to do it again with some other shapes in the front view. You can follow me in what I'm doing, and now you will have both the original shape and the regions created. Once we're done selecting and hit enter. Notice, however, that since red is the color for the current layer, our newly created regions will be red. Now let's move our regions to the right. So select each of the regions we just did. You can do it by clicking on top of each one of the objects, since they will be in the front and the original object will be at the back. Once you're done selecting them, just move them to the right. So we have now on the right are the regions we did, and on the left the originals we had. I will select now this object here to differentiate it from the region, and we'll go to the properties module, pull the menu for color, and let's use for this the by layer option, so it adopts the default color of the layer, which is white. Now I'll use command orbit, which allows me to rotate an orbit within our drawing, and for this you can use the mouse. I'll put them at an angle and right click to get the menu and select exit to finish the command. Also you can hit escape, by the way. Now the next command we'll use is going to be revolve. First prompt is select objects to revolve. Click the profile. Now the object has to revolve around an axis, so the next prompt is to specify that axis start point. So click here, select the axis endpoint, and see that the moment you click it, CAD generates a 3D from that shape. Now we have to specify the angle of revolution, which for us will be 360 degrees. So in this case, we will accept the default 360, or if in your case it's different, just enter manually 360 and hit enter. Let's go to the Visual Styles module to change our visual style from 2D wireframe, which is the current one, and we will use the conceptual style. Now this is what we just did. Notice in the back that we have the inner parts of the rim as planar objects or regions, but in the foreground we have the rough 3D rim. Okay, so right click and exit the orbit command. For our next step, we'll call command extrude. We will work around here, so select all of these objects, and once they are selected, you can either enter the height with your keyboard or click in space once you are okay with the height of the preview that we're having. Is rotate all of these elements, so we will use command 3D rotate. Now select the objects, and the next prompt is specify base point. Sometimes acquire the correct point is kind of hard, so before doing it, I'll type zen or ZEN and hit enter. So it will only suggest center points on these objects. Now pick a rotation axis and you click on it. Now it requests a rotation angle, so I'll enter 90, hit enter, and this is the result. Now we have to move it to the corresponding place in the rim, so I'll change the visual style back to 2D wireframe because it is easier here to locate the points in the objects, at least for me. Now I'll use again Command Move and select all of these objects again. Be careful not to select any part of the rim. And once you're done selecting the objects for the base point, use the very center of the axle part and put it in the corresponding place in the rim, at the very center also. Now let me go back to conceptual visual style so you see what happened. We orbit again to go to the back of the rim, and yes, I know the rim is not like this, but we're going to subtract all of this from the rim. This is one of the so-called Boolean operations. I like to make sure I have them in the right position, so I'll move them again a little bit to the inside by repeating command moves. And it's hard to move it manually from this position, so I'll use displacement option and we'll type 2, 0, 0, so it moves in the positive direction in the x-axis, just what we need. Now repeat orbit to see it through the other side, and this is what we have. Now start typing subtract and call the command. First prompt is select objects, but which ones? See up here that it says select solid surfaces and regions to subtract from, and this is the keyword. So I'll select the rim. Now it asks again for objects, but in this case will be the ones to be subtracted. See it noted here. So now start selecting all of these objects, and when you hit enter, see the result. It actually carves on the rim and leaves the empty space with the shape we had. You can repeat now the process to subtract the bold areas from the rim, just like me. Now let me orbit again so you see how it looks from everywhere. Our next step now is making it look more real. So we will assign a material to this rim. Start typing material in your keyboard or select it from the suggestions. This will open the materials palette or browser, which will be here on the right. Depending on what you're doing, you can assign materials to your objects. Here I'm on the metals, and from here I can select the one I prefer. We can scroll up and down until we are okay with one of them. To make it available in the drawing, we can drag and drop it in the drawing. So in my case, I'll use steel galvanized, but you can use a different one if you prefer. Well, now Windows is bothering with this request, so disregard it. And just let's drop the material in the drawing. Although you can also do it on top of the rim. And back to the materials browser, the top part indicates the materials in the actual drawing. And you can see that our materials was just added, along with global, which is the default by the way. From here, you can drop it on top of the objects and they will receive the material. In order for us to see it, we'll change the visual style from conceptual to realistic, and this is what we have. Of course, it is not reflecting the final color or texture due to the amount of computer resources it requires, but it's fairly close for our purposes. To see more or less how it might look, I'll start typing render, and from the menu of suggestions, we will use render crop. Now, click on it. CAD prompts me to select a window to render. All we have to do is specify where we want that window and select it. This will just render the section you specify. So I'll pick this area, and now immediately CAD will start rendering the area, and this will give us an idea of what will be the final look in terms of material. Now when you're okay, the final touch will be adding the accents that look like bolts all around the rim. So let's go back to our 2D objects and let's create a circle on top of the one of the existing ones. One of them, right? Now we move it to an area close to our 3D rim, Let me clarify that this is the environment or workspace typical of 2D and not of 3D. Now, let's draw a line from top to bottom through the center and then trim the left side. Now repeat it. Draw a line from the middle of the arc to the left to trim one of the sides again. Now we use again boundary command. Keep the region option to be done. Pick the internal point within our shape, and then we have our region done. Now we use again revolve command. Upon prompting, specify the two options at the bottom as the axis, and then click enter again to accept the default revolution angle, which is now 360 degrees. And there we have the object. Now let's orbit it again and see how it is. Depending on the resources of your computer, it might get kind of sluggish or slow sometimes when working in 3D. And this is, normal for. And in the meantime, we go back to the visual style and change it to 2D wireframe. We go to View tab, View Module, pull the menu for the preset views, and from there select the left option. Now let's move our accent to the position we want on the left, and we want it more or less here. Okay. Now to move it to the final place, the right place in our drawing, let's go to the View module again, pull the menu for the preset views, and now select the front view, which will put the object sideways for us. Now repeat move command and place it at the correct position. Once it's done, let's go and assign the same material like the rim. So select the object, right click, and go all the way down on the to click on properties. This will open the properties palette, and there under 3D visualization we have materials. Change it from by layer to steel galvanized. Okay. Back in the model space, now hit escape to deselect the object, and then again we change the view. In this case, I'll use southeast isometric. Let me orbit to put in a better position, and notice in the background that we have our 2D views or drawings. Let's change the visual style again to conceptual, and well, actually let's change better to a front view. So we'll use the right view for that. And now we can call again array command. Select objects to select the type of array, in our case polar. Now the prompt is specify center point of array, and since I have a bunch of possible points because of all of the drawings in the background, I'll type CEN or CEN and hit enter to force CAD to look for a center point as a suggestion. I'll choose this point then and see that it gives me 6 objects in total. Now modify it to 25 items. You should know how to do this, and here we are. Now let's get a better view to render it, and let's again change the view to southeast isometric. Now let's start typing fillet, and from the options pick on fillet edge. Now from the command options pick on radius, and let's use 0.2 inches. Now pull the menu options again and click on loop. Now we have to start selecting the edges on all the holes in between the spokes, and also for the hole that will be at the very center for the axle part. Notice that every time you click on an edge, it will ask you to accept the loop you choose for the edge. Here you can hit enter every time, as I'm doing, or you can select all of them at once. Now since we're done with the spokes and the center, change the radius with the command still active. You don't have to exit the command. And change the radius to 0.1 inches and select the edges on the holes for the bolts. Once you hit enter, the operation is completed. All we have left now is render the final product. So let's change again the visual style, and we will use the shades of gray style. Now let's center our rim for the picture, and then we'll type command render. When you hit enter, it will open a new window, and you will see the process of rendering the image and turn it, it's gonna be turned into a picture. I just want to mention that this is a very, very basic rendering, since it is doing it with most of the default values for, let's say, for lighting, shadows, materials, textures, etc, etc, etc. So later I'll include some videos specific for this and other subjects. And finally, what we have is a render picture of our 3D rim that you can save in your computer. For that, all we do is select the picture, rendering you prefer, select it, then right click, hit save, then you have to specify the place. So I'll put it somewhere on my desktop, and we'll name it the way I prefer. In my case, will be rendered 3D rim. And when clicking OK or hit enter, you will have this dialog box to specify the output quality depending on the image you use. In this case, it's a BMP. When you're done rendering, we close the rendering window and we're back in our drawing model. Well friends, this is it for today. I hope you like what you learned. Remember, you can subscribe to my channel, and please don't forget to like the video. Again, thanks for watching, and see you next time.